Hey, it's Samina, and today this is going to be a two-part series. We are going to do how to have a wedding on a budget but not compromise your wedding. The worst thing you can do is think that you have to cut everything out of your wedding to have a budget one. Not necessarily. I'm going to show you the 23 ways to have a budget wedding. We are going to do 10 in this and 13 in part 2. Hopefully these two videos will run simultaneously on 2 different days, so you can watch one and then watch the other. So what is a budget wedding? A budget wedding is basically limiting yourself to a budget for the big day, whether it's £1,000 or £5,000. Set yourself a limit before you do your wedding, and then it's easy to budget everything accordingly. But there are things that you can get away with that will save you money and cut the cost of your wedding, so that you don't end up with a 20 or £30,000 wedding if your budget is 5,000 or even less. So the first thing you can cut out: only invite people you want. Now this is very important. If there are people you don't want at your wedding, don't invite them. Don't invite old school friends, don't invite distant friends, don't invite distant family. Keep the numbers small to the people that A, you probably just want at your wedding, B, you actually want to pay for them to be there, whether it's their wedding food. You don't necessarily want 100, 200 people if you only care about the 50, that are close to you. So invite people that you really want to your wedding is really important. That will cut costs of food, invitations, accommodation if they need to stay. You can start cutting the wedding down from the minute you plan to invite somebody. Number 2, the ceremony and the reception. Have them at the same venue. This will cut your cost tenfold. So instead of having to have your reception in one place and your ceremony in the other, so then you pay 2, you'll pay to have the ceremony in one place and the reception in the other. Then, on top of that, you'll also have to pay for the transport from the ceremony to the reception as well. Not only that, all your guests will have to go from one place to another, which is okay, but they probably won't thank you if it's raining on the day. So if I was you, have the ceremony and reception in the same venue if you can do it. If you're like me, there's a wedding place I want to get married at, and I can actually have the reception in one area and the wedding in the same place but in a different building on the same site. So try and do it like that, or try and make the reception and the venue as close as you can in distance, so you don't have to travel. Maybe it's in walking distance from your reception or your reception to your venue. Cut the distance, cut the cost of having to travel and everything, so that then cuts the wedding venue down and the price, because you'll only be paying for one place. Number 3, not too early in the day. Now this is a very important one that people forget. If you have a wedding at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, you will have to cater for your entire party all day. So you'll have to provide canapes before the wedding and drinks and keep them entertained, and then have lunch, and then do a buffet in the evening, and then do desserts. So if I was you, have a wedding 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Do a wedding at 3, do canapes and drinks after the wedding, then get to your evening do and have your meal at sort of 6 o'clock, then have your dessert 7 or 8, then you can dance the night away from 9 o'clock, and that is your wedding done. Cost effectiveness: the later in the day the wedding is, the less you fork out for your guests. That means not having to fork out drinks, not having to fork out extra food, because the day drags on. So cut the wedding, 3 o'clock, canapes, drinks, your main 3-course meal, your desserts if you're having one, or your wedding cake. Cut the cost of the day down by shrinking the day. Not necessarily compromising on your wedding, but compromising on the parts that cost you the money. So have longer to get ready in the morning instead of having to rush. Make the day run more smoothly, but not having to try and cram it in to such a small time frame, but don't make it so big that it costs you a lot either. Day 4, off-day prices. It is a common fact that it is cheaper to get married during the week. It just is. You want a Saturday or a Sunday wedding, you're going to pay twice as much. You're going to get married on a Thursday or a Monday, you're going to pay half the price. I don't know why it's so popular. Maybe it's more guests can make it on a weekend. Maybe it's more popular because the venues fill up at a weekend, so they charge you more. But try and do a weekday wedding. It sounds like a bad idea that most guests work and they won't be able to come. But if you give them notice, a lot of people can get days off or book holiday. So have a Thursday wedding, have a Wednesday wedding. It will cut the cost of your wedding, but not necessarily all your wedding party may be able to make it. So you then have to think, the compromise between the two. Number 5, don't have a bar, but have a bring a bottle wedding. Now, if you're trying to do a wedding on a budget, one thing on the weddings that's going to cost you a lot is alcohol if you plan on serving it. Most weddings have a bar, they'll have like a first drink for free, they might have an open bar all evening. If you want to cut that down on having to do an expenditure, do a bring a bottle wedding. So every guest that comes brings their own bottle. You have a table set up where you put the wine or whatever they bring. And then you have what we call servers. So then you have 2 people, whether they're friends, family, relatives, or within the place that you're having the wedding, that then serves the alcohol. Or you can have a bring a bottle wedding and still serve it from behind a bar if you don't need to use the bar. It depends where you have your venue. But if you're going to have it in a village hall or something like that, or in your back garden, you could have a bring a bottle wedding and save yourself a lot of money on alcohol. The alternative is not to have a bar at all. Do juice, do smoothies, do, tea and coffee if you have to at your wedding. You don't necessarily have to have alcohol. It is kind of traditional to have alcohol, but it's not necessarily mandatory. You could just have champagne when you toast the bride, and the rest of the time just have no alcohol, or have an alcohol-free zone. Number 6, make your own invites. Now this will cut your costs tenfold. If you want to have your invitations made by somebody else, you're going to have to pay for a lot. You're going to have to pay for the cards, you have to pay for the personalization. If you were to make them at home on your computer, get a template offline, which is free. Customize your own message in the card. Yes, you'll have to pay to print it at home, but I guarantee you that it will not cost as much as having it done by an actual printer as well, or having it done by an actual wedding invitation company. They charge you a lot because it's the wedding industry and all they see is pound signs. So make your own one. Get your bridesmaids around and make them together. It can be so much fun to spend the evening just crafting. Another thing to do to cut the cost of the invitations is to hand deliver them. Now, postage in the UK is expensive. You want to send 100 invitations out, it's going to cost you a lot. If you've already then had to pay for the cards, you've had to pay for the envelopes, the personalization, and now you're going to have to post them and spend, 70 or 80p on each invite, and you're doing 100 guests, it's going to cost you, 50 to £100 just to post them. What I would do is, if you live near the people you're inviting, hand deliver them. Get one of your bridesmaids or get one of your best men to do it and hand deliver as many invites as you can. Or if you know people that are then seeing the other people you're inviting, ask if they kindly give them to them. Or give them out at a family event before your wedding and hand them out. Maybe hand them out at Christmas, hand them out at a birthday party. Get them out there so it doesn't cost you to post them, because the postage is going to cost you tenfold. Question number 8, Make your own table decorations. Now this can be really fun. If you want to have a flower arrangement in the middle of your table, go to your local garden centre, go to your local florist, go to your local open garden or your local nursery, get a bunch of flowers, get a whole host of them, bring them home, get some ribbon, go to a charity shop, get some cheap vases, sit at home with your bridesmaids or your partner and make the centerpieces yourself. It is really fun and simple to do. You just need a vase, a couple of flowers, maybe tie a bow around it or a piece of ribbon, or if you're going to do something simpler, get a goldfish bowl shape, some stones in the bottom, stick a candle in the middle. Cheap centerpiece. It's going to cost you a lot less to make your own than to rent centerpieces or have a company come in and do them. It can also be more fun. You can spend time with your bridesmaids doing it, not necessarily your hen party, but it does give your bridesmaids a way of helping you. And it also lightens the load for you as well on the stress level, having people help and around you. Do not be afraid to ask for help. Rule number one for a wedding, do not be afraid to ask for help, support, because you'll find so much more stressful if you try and do it all by yourself. So make them yourself. You can make really unique ones as well. You don't have to have the same one that your friend had at another friend's wedding and whatever. You can customize them for yourself. You can put your initials on it. You can put the date of the wedding on it. You can customize as much as you like. You can style it to the wedding, style it to the theme. Then we have use flowers that are at the ceremony and take them to the reception. So flowers are probably the second most expensive thing to having the actual ceremony itself. People spend ridiculous amounts of money on wedding flowers. We're talking hundreds and maybe even thousands of pounds for flowers. Go crazy and take the flowers from the ceremony that you had tied round the pew or on the table at the wedding and take them to the reception. Have your groomsmen or your bridesmaids or a member of your family, your mum or your dad maybe, take them, stick them in the car and take them to the wedding. And while everyone is having the canapes and drinks, you can then put them out on the tables. It will save you a ton. The alternative to having the flowers from the ceremony to the reception would be to have artificial flowers. Go to your local bargain shop, get nice bunches of artificial flowers and use them. Have real ones at the ceremony and have artificial ones at the reception. That way they don't die, they don't cost, and you can always donate them to a charity shop or an old people's home once you've finished, or donate them to your friends when they leave and say, look, do you want this arrangement? And they can take it with them, which is kind of what happens at some weddings. You can take the arrangements in the middle once the wedding is finished, or if you want them taken back to your house, you can keep them for yourself. And then the last part in part one of this budget wedding idea is have everyone take photos. So disposable cameras are not cheap, and getting them photographed, developed isn't cheap. What I do, set up a group on Facebook that is just for wedding photos. Have people take wedding photos throughout the day on their phones, their tablets, whatever they use. Have them upload the photos to the Facebook group. You can then choose the photos you want to keep. You can then create an album and have them all printed off, and then you can give select members of your family photos from the wedding. So your bridesmaids or your grooms, the parents of the bride and groom. And you can pick people's photos. So do a page on Facebook, have everyone take pictures. They can load them up there and you can filter through all the ones that are ridiculous and get the ones you want. That way, if people use disposable cameras and just take pictures willy-nilly, they're more likely to take pictures that they want to keep or want to see again on their phone, because it's special to them that took the photo. So then they load them to the Facebook group. You can always ask if you want a picture of this or a copy of this and create an album. It'll also save money on a photographer at the reception or having disposable cameras, which is another costly thing. So hopefully that has helped you. This is part 1 of 2. I've cut it into 2 because it's going to be a really long video if I was to sit here for half hour rambling on about how you can have a cheap wedding. How you can have a cheap wedding is not listening to me ramble on about having a cheap wedding. So if you want to see part 2, do keep an eye out. Hopefully it will come out tomorrow. But if you haven't already and you're loving my wedding series, then give us a big thumbs up. Comment down below if you have any ideas for a budget wedding. I do have another 13 ideas, so we'll see if we have the same wavelength. Obviously, I've been engaged for 12 years and I'm still not married, so this is just from my own personal experience. I do have 2 sisters that have been married, so I do have a little bit of experience when it comes to wedding, and I do have a passion for weddings myself. So if you haven't already, do give me a big thumbs up, like, subscribe, and I'll see you for part 2 very soon. Take care and thanks for watching. Bye.